Vegeta, thanks.
For what? I should be thanking you, Kakarot.
You're gonna fall in love so many times before you find the one you'll be with forever.
You see, Pikachu? Everybody's backing us up.
Did you miss us, Mr. Mosby?
I love you guys.
Love you too. Love you too, kid.
Goodbye, my friend.
There are a few shows we watch that stay with us for life. You'd be sat in front of the TV after school watching Dan fight Masquerade, sharing your energy with Goku so he could finally beat Boo, or pulling out your hair as Ash lost yet another Pokemon battle. Seriously, this kid sucked. And a lot of the time, you didn't even know you were watching an anime. You didn't even know you were making memories. You just knew you were having fun. But there's one anime that went beyond your TV screen. The kind that became an actual sport. The kind that had you wagering your lunch money in school. It was an anime that probably defined your childhood. An anime that taught you what it means to live for something you love. An anime that could very well be perfect. And it's called
Beyblade, Beyblade, let it rip!
This is a show about spinning toys, and yet it is so hype. There might have been shows like Dragon Ball that had every kid thinking they could do a Kamehameha, but there are literally official Beyblade competitions all over the world that people actually train for. It did something that no other show could ever hope to. But what is it about these shows that have such a hold on us? I just assumed it was because it reminded us of a better time. A time where the only thing we had to worry about was how to get a black belt on Club Penguin. But after rewatching Beyblade a full 15 years after it first came out, holy shit, what the hell am I doing with my life? But I realized there are actually 4 reasons why shows from the 2000s just hit different compared to even some of the best shows of today. And Beyblade actually did this better than anyone. And it all started with the characters, where the show did something pretty special. If I had to ask you who the most memorable characters were from some of the shows you watched as a kid, you'd probably say people like Goku, Aang, Alex, Carly, or even Dan. But you probably wouldn't say this absolute fraud of a protagonist. Now that's partly because there's a certain other character that stole the show, but it's mainly because the reason we're drawn to a character in the first place is the same reason we're drawn to each other in real life: relatability. And that character isn't Gingka, because the most relatable character in Beyblade is also the most annoying. And he's also the first person we meet, the person that introduces us to one of the wackiest worlds in animation, where people walk around with Bey launchers as if they're guns, and we have trained Beyblade assassins that can snipe you from across town. And that person is Kenta Yumiya. And this kid is a bum. Like, he is weak as balls. Imagine you just ate the spiciest curry you've ever had and the next day you wake up to take a raging dump. This kid is that dump, but he also ends up going through some amazing character development, rivaling Tsukishima's block or Hinata's receive. But you know, that takes like 150 episodes. But as far as episode 1 goes, Beyblade does an amazing job of orientating us into its world through Kenta. We see him advancing through a tournament where we quickly learn how this world works, where the primary sport of Beyblade has taken over pretty much every aspect of life. And I mean every aspect, because there are people that lose battles and either end up in comas or with severe PTSD. But before that, let's learn a bit more about this world by watching Kenta get jumped. Now, if you're wondering why a group of thugs are abusing a kid that's probably about as tall as your knees, it's because they want to steal his points. Why do they want to do that? I don't know. My best guess is that it's probably because there are tournaments you can only enter if you have a certain amount of points. And the first 2 seasons of Beyblade are pretty much 80% tournament arcs. And this is something that I think sets a lot of old anime apart, and I wish more modern shows would include, because there's not a single soul that doesn't froth at the mouth at the thought of watching a tournament. There's a reason there were like 1 billion world tournaments in Dragon Ball. There's a reason the UA Sports Festival is one of the most loved arcs in My Hero. And there's a reason we all love Bakugan. They make it so that anyone can lose. In fact, they make it so that almost everyone loses. And that massively increases the stakes, especially when the teams you care about actually lose. And this is actually a surprisingly good way to make the world feel more immersive. Because what better way to feel at home than knowing you can get jumped and robbed any minute so these dickheads can go enter a tournament. And that's all down to 3 characters: Kenta, Benkei, and...
The name's Gingka. Gingka Hagane.
Nah. This has to be the worst fit any MC has ever worn. Why are you wearing a scarf with a short sleeve jacket? Are you hot or are you cold? And why does he have 2 belts? They're not even holding up his pants. The only thing this kid's got going for him is that his hair is fire as hell. Remember when you could just tell who the protagonists were by looking at their hair? Why did we stop doing that? Like, what is this? What is this? Anyway, this is our protagonist, Gingka Hagane. And the first thing we see him do is completely wreck the face hunters, to the point Benkei runs away holding holding his dick, don't ask why, and then he comes back with 100 bladers, gets wrecked again, and runs away holding his dick again. Just take a moment to let that sink in. This character that we have just met easily takes on 100 bladers to the point that Kenta can't even see his bay moving. And this is just episode 1, and I hate it. But Mocha, you said the characters were great. And yes, they are, but he isn't. And I'll be real, I remember watching his entrance as a kid and thinking it was the coolest thing ever. This guy was Jinwoo before Solo Leveling, Gojo before JJK, Optimus Prime before Transformers. But now I find myself asking why on earth I even cared. How many shows can you remember where the protagonist was this strong? In the first arc of season 1, Gingka has 8 battles and wins them all besides one. And he's made out to be this incredibly stoic and philosophical character at the mere age of 15. I can never imagine this guy crashing out.
If you dare to make fun of my father again, you're gonna pay for it big time!
Okay, that's fair, but the point is, this should be boring, right? In Bakugan, Dan starts at rank 117, and in Dragon Ball, the first thing we see happen is Goku getting wrecked by Raditz, and then he literally dies. That's what makes them so relatable. You know, besides the dying part. We start off at the same level as them and watch them grow, rooting for them to do better. It was the same with Inazuma 11, with Raimon not even having enough members to form a team, and even newer sports anime do this really well. In Haikyuu, Karasuno start out pretty bare bones with Nishinoya and Asahi joining 8 episodes in, and in Blue Lock, Isagi is on the worst team and is the worst player, besides this guy. That's what makes us want them to win. That's what makes them relatable, and that's what makes a show memorable. Having a protagonist that's this strong and this unrelatable shouldn't work, but it does. Why? Well, that's down to a little disease that ran rampant in the 2000s and has been completely eradicated in the 2020s. And that disease is called rivals. It's called rivals. I miss the dynamics of Vegeta and Goku, Shun and Dan, Gary and Ash, characters that gave our protagonists a reason to never stop pushing forward. They became people we would root against and made us love the protagonist even more. Nowadays, we just have Bakugo, and for some reason, half the MHA fanbase thinks he wants to shag Deku or something. And that's why Kyoya was so important in Beyblade, because not only did he give us some of the best fights, he also gave us some of the most badass moments too. You know, besides his drip, because where do I even begin? Why is bro showing off his stomach? And why are his clothes so torn up? Like, bro, you're the leader of one of the most feared gangs in the city. Just buy something better. And why does he have scars on his face? What could he have possibly gone through in his 15 years on Earth to warrant those? Oh yeah, forgot that happened, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The reason characters like Kyoya are so important to shows like Beyblade, Bakugan, or even Pokemon is because they balance out our protagonist, acting as a sort of foil. Granted, this was done to death in the 2000s, but that's exactly what made those shows so good, and it's a big part of why we can't forget them. Because to this day, I still remember what it was like to watch Dan fight Spectra, to watch Goku fight Vegeta, or to watch Jinga fight Kyoya. And if you're wondering why these two are even fighting, it's because Benkei steals Kenta's bait and threatens to basically murder it if Gingka doesn't fight Kyoya. And I'm not even joking. And while their second match, which I'll get to later, is one of the best battles in the series, this one is pretty great too, because we finally get to see Gingka actually struggle as he has no way around Kyoya's Lion Gale Force Ward. But then his scarf gets blown off, which makes no sense because it's tied at the back, so it shouldn't even be possible, but that's besides the point. And Gingka sees it hovering right above Leon, which tells him exactly what he needs to do, as we are about to see one of the most iconic special moves in anime. Do you guys understand how important a character's special move was back in the day? Like, I get that one of the biggest anime tropes of all time is a character shouting out the name of their attack. But if I asked you what Deku's signature move was, what would you say? Detroit Smash? Okay, but what about Delaware Smash, or Manchester Smash, or all the other cities? And what about Jinwoo? I, for the life of me, cannot name a single one of his moves. But if I showed you Goku, the first thing you'd say is Kamehameha, or Naruto and his Rasengan, or Yusuke and his Spirit Gun. Don't pretend like you didn't try to do all of these. And when it comes to Beyblade, the most iconic special move is obviously
Pegasus Star Blast attack!
I take back like everything I said about this kid, because I won't lie to you, I must have tried to get my bae to do this at least 5 times. Jump, you stupid bitch. And that brings us to the second ingredient that makes Beyblade one of those shows you can't help but hold with you for life. And it happens right after Jinga beats Kyoya, because that's when we're introduced to someone literally everyone loves to hate, Doji. You see, while the characters are a big reason as to why Beyblade was so iconic, it wouldn't be complete without a villain for us to root against. In Bakugan, that was done in the form of Masquerade and Naga. And in Dragon Ball, it was Frieza, who they pretty much make out to be the final villain right from the start of the Saiyan saga. Just think about what you see on Namek, with Vegeta teaming up with the others to take on the Ginyu Force, Goku's badass arrival, Piccolo fusing with Nail to take on Frieza, Vegeta's death, and the greatest moment in the show. All of these moments are in response to pure sinister strength. These moments would not have been the same if it were not for the utterly perfect writing that went into crafting a great antagonist. And Doji is not that guy. He's different in the best of ways. There are some villains that we watched when we were little that we absolutely hated, but that just meant they were great characters. And the way he's introduced into the story is just perfect, because he tells Kyoya that he wants to help him become stronger so that he can finally beat Ginga. So how does he do that? Does he A, give him a stronger Bei, teach him a new technique, train him to become stronger, or D, take him to a remote mountain where he does nothing but insult him before kicking his ass?
Go ahead, retreat! Pack up and run away empty-handed just like you did when you lost your battle with Ginga. The only one around here who needs help is you. You're the loser, remember? It's very simple. Even you should be able to understand it. Just zip it and do as I say. Kyoya here wouldn't be able to beat my Aunt Clara and Pinochle.
And then he just leaves. What the fuck? And that means Kyoya has no choice but to begin training, and that's when you realize how serious the sport of Beyblade is. Because what the hell is this?
Dog, where are we?
Legend has it that the king of the jungle, the lion, would throw his cubs into the canyon and only raise the one strong enough to climb out.
Bro, that's kinda fucked up.
A true warrior only proves himself when he faces a seemingly impossible challenge.
Bro, I get that, but why are we here?
If you climb to the top of this cliff, you'll awaken the warrior sleeping within you.
Then I'll be strong enough to beat Ginga, right?
What? I never said that. Wait, where are you?
And so with Kyoya doing some pretty questionable things to get stronger, Ginga is also training against Kenta. Now I know what you're thinking, but this is deadass one of the most interesting moments of the show, and it really goes to show what gives Beyblade such a strong pull. Because I tried to mimic this fight so many times as a kid, and that's because it's just so damn realistic. You know, minus all the magical animals. You see, Kenta launches his Bei incorrectly, and Ginga is all like, seriously man? But it's actually on purpose, because it means his Bei is able to tilt whenever Ginga attacks, which minimizes the impact. And the reason this is so sick is because there are actually lots of different ways to launch a Bei in real life. In fact, without going too much into spoilers, later we'll see a certain goat literally throw his Bei by hand and still cook everyone. And you can actually do that in real life too. It's insane. Like, can you imagine turning up to school, betting your lunch money on beating everyone, and then just throwing your Bei onto the table and still winning? But in Kenta's case, he still loses because, well, Jinga's just the best, isn't he? There's literally nobody else on his level. Okay, so far we've covered the protagonists and the villain, but for me, there's an even bigger reason as to why shows like Beyblade, Bakugan, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon resonate with so many of us. And the best way I can explain that is through one more character. But before we get to her, if you're enjoying this video and want to see a second part, I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe. I'm trying to hit 30,000 subscribers and I won't be able to do it without your help. But let's get back to who I think is one of the most underrated characters in the show, Hikaru Hazama. And despite her being one of the biggest disappointments pretty much ever, she's also the biggest reason why I love this show. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy, but just bear with me. We're introduced to her with one of the most badass entrances in the entire show, where Hikaru takes on 4 bladers at once and she has the sickest Bei ever, which can pretty much turn invisible. Add to that the fact that her character design is pretty damn sick, and she has some great motivations where her aim is to fulfill her promise to her dying mother by becoming the best blader in the world, and you have an amazing character. But the point is, she's looking to fight the strongest bladers in the country. And so she fights Kenta. God damn it. But oh my god, this boy gets absolutely wrecked over and over again until he wagers all of his points. This is dead ass a gambling addiction. In fact, he gets beat so bad that Benkei, a character that's supposed to be a villain, feels so bad for this pathetic waste of life that he decides to train him. And he's got the kid doing one-armed push-ups, pulling tires like it's Inazuma 11, and holy shit, is he benching 375 pounds? I'm gonna be real, I have no idea what any of this has to do with Beyblade, but it actually ends up working because thanks to Benkei's training and Madoka upgrading Sagittario, Kenta actually beats Hikaru with his new special move.
Sagittario, go, 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 go! Special move! Sagittario Flame Claw!
And this is when the show really peaks for me. This is why the show meant so much to me as a kid before I was even smart enough to realize why it meant so much. Because after losing to Kenta, Hikaru doesn't feel worthy of battling Ginga anymore, and she thinks she needs to get stronger to beat Kenta first and then challenge Ginga. And Jinga's response to that is just amazing.
Who cares about that sort of thing? I just really want to battle with you.
I vaguely remember the first time I watched this battle when I was little. It was right after school and I was sat on the floor in front of the TV wanting Gingka to wipe the floor with this arrogant blue-haired girl. Because why wouldn't I want that? After all, Gingka was a super cool main character and I'm sure you'd have wanted the same. But now that I'm watching that same battle 15 years later, I just want Hikaru to win. And I don't know why. Or at least I didn't know why. But then I thought about it, and other than the fact that I hate Gingka, the reason I want Hikaru to win is because Jinga's battling because it's fun, whereas Hikaru is battling to carry a promise to her mother who'll never see the victory she dreams of. So why wouldn't I want her to win? But those facts were the same 15 years ago. So the only thing that's changed between now and then is us. Because what's wrong with doing something purely because it's fun? Sure, it might be childish, but aren't we all driven by that same childish spark? That's why this will always be my favorite battle in the series, and that's why Beyblade is such a great show, because it's a reminder that you don't have to justify the things you love with productivity or time or money. And that's a trap I think I was falling into. And it's because of this show that I caught myself. The reason we take on adult responsibilities, work, studies, and endlessly swiping through notifications is so that we can clear space for the simple things we've grown to treasure. That's why the games and stories we watched when we were little matter so much to us today. Pokemon, Minecraft, Zelda, Final Fantasy, and so many more pieces of art still influence us to this very day. And I don't want to lose that. I work hard during the day so at night I can unwind with a show or a game or spend time with my friends and family for no other reason than because it's fun, because that's all that should matter. And this channel is an example of that. Being able to talk about stories that evoke that childish wonder in me is all I could ever ask for, and it lets me connect with you and hopefully remind you of how much fun it was to sit in front of the TV when you had nothing to worry about. Because if life turns into the same old routine with nothing new to look forward to, then what's the point? And Hikaru might have been fighting so that she could become the strongest blader in the world, but Gingka makes her realize that she was also having fun. So maybe, in the end, the real thing driving Hikaru was that same childish spark inside all of us, which for her is the chance to feel her mother's hand ruffle her hair again, something that she'll never be able to feel again. That's why this battle matters so much, because it teaches us to never bury that little kid inside of us.
Oh yeah, this one for sure.
Verb, I know what we're gonna do today. Oh, it's so cute, it's the best of all!
And this is our very first webcast of a little show we call iCarly.
Come on, say hi.
I am. I think you're gonna make a great wizard.
I wanted to do a painting, so we always remember the good times together.
It's decided! We now have ourselves a new champion!
Remember this moment, Drago.
I'm Carly.
I'm Sam.
And this has been iCarly.
It's kind of crazy how a few TV shows can have such a huge impact on our lives, and it's even crazier that for a lot of us, Beyblade of all things was that show. But there's still a piece missing, because it's finally time to talk about one of the best villains from our childhood, and that actually starts with Kyoya's rematch against Gingka. You see, Benkei gets news that Kyoya is back and he's unsure of how to face him again because he's now left the Face Hunter, so he feels like he's betrayed Kyoya, and honestly, he kinda did. But Kenta, for once, actually says something that isn't completely useless.
You didn't do anything wrong! Go see Kyoya. He'll understand.
You're right! I'm being sick!
Now my first question is, how the hell is Kenta carrying Benkei? This man must weigh like, that makes sense. But my next question is, why are they acting like he's dying? All he did was lose a Beyblade bat. Did he actually die? I did not think this show would get so sick. Let's just skip to the damn fight. The Gingka vs Kyoya rematch is honestly one of the highlights of season 1. If Gingka vs Hikaru was one of the most layered and meaningful battles, this fight is the most hype. Basically, if every fight was an anime, this fight would be solo leveling. Now I know what you're thinking. How could that bullshit in the mountains possibly make him a stronger blader? Well, I don't know either. But he really gives Gingka a run for his money because he's got Leon spinning so fast, it's dead ass causing a thunderstorm. Like, this is a toy. How the hell is this even possible? But then again, Moses part of the Red Sea with a Beyblade, so I shouldn't even question anything at this point. And I don't know what the hell happened in that canyon, but Kyoya is whooping Jinga's ass to the point even his friends can't watch, relentlessly attacking him over and over again and pushing him into a corner. But then something special happens, because their battle can be seen from all over the city, which is absolutely ridiculous, but I'll let it slide. And that attracts a huge crowd, all rooting for Gingka. But they're not just rooting for Gingka, they're rooting for Kyoya too, because unlike Doji and a certain other character, Kyoya isn't evil, and the audience is in awe of the epic battle in front of them against the two most powerful bladers in the country. But here's the thing, you might be thinking Gingka wins because of the power of friendship, but Beyblade isn't that sort of show. Okay, it is, but that's not relevant here. What Gingka does is actually pretty brilliant, where he uses Leon Tornado to increase the speed of his rotation, which makes no sense because they're both rotating in the same direction, so if anything it should be slowing him down, but that's okay because we get to see a brand new special move, and it might even be cooler than Star Blast Attack.
Pegasus, meteor shower attack!
And this is when things get spicy, because Doji arrives right as Kyoya loses, kicks his ass, and then leaves. Man, he must really hate him. But here's something a lot of people missed here. Gingka knows who Doji is, but how? He's never seen or heard of him before, so how does he know who he is? This is actually a brilliant piece of detail that amazingly sets up the final battle of this arc, and it brings us to the last piece of the puzzle and one of the biggest reasons why pretty much everyone loves Beyblade, and that's done by addressing something the show has been missing so far. You see, Doji is a brilliant villain. He's cunning, intelligent, and outright sinister, but he isn't quite an unstoppable force like Frieza, Masquerade, or even Ushijima. Now, I'm not saying that a show needs that sort of villain, or even a villain at all to be good, because there are plenty of sports anime out there that don't have a villain and are still amazing, mainly because it would make no sense for a group of volleyball players to go up against some sort of evil organization. But then again, in Inazuma 11 we see them fighting gods, aliens, robots, and an evil shadow organization trying to take control over the world through football. So, you know, take it with a pinch of salt. But the point is, even in a show like Haikyuu, you have an antagonistic force which was either in the form of a rival like Nekoma, or a stronger opponent like Inarizaki, Shiro Torizawa, or my favorite anime villain of all time, Oikawa Toru. And that's really been missing from Beyblade. Or has it? Well, one thing you might have noticed is that unlike a lot of other shows we watched when we were little, one thing that Beyblade is surprisingly good at is making sure that each story beat is linked in one way or another. It's not a case of something happening and then the next thing happens. Instead, the next thing happens because the first thing happened. And that's why Jinga's been traveling through the country. He wants to get stronger so he can take down the Dark Nebula, an evil organization that's trying to revive the Forbidden Bay, Lightning El Drago. And so with Kyoya's help, they find the Dark Nebula's base where they combine their moves to break through. If only they knew what was waiting for them inside. This episode right here is my favorite episode of the entire show. And no, it's not just because we finally get to meet my goat, it's because it features some of the most creative battles in the series where each of the characters in our cast have a chance to shine, besides Kenta. Why is he even here? And the episode is filled with some amazing moments as a group protects Madoka while she works on hacking the system, but even as she manages to break through, they still have to fight with some handicaps. Kyoya can't use his full power because, well, there's no wind indoors, so instead he uses the heat from the friction of his bay to increase Leon's power. Do you know how sick that is? And it's the same with Gingka when he fights Doji. He can't use his Star Blast attack because, well, there's a ceiling. And honestly, this is when we learn that Doji doesn't only hate Kyoya, he's just a hater through and through.
It must be Wednesday, because it's time to take out the trash.
There's a scene in season 3 where he dies and he spends his entire time laughing at someone else losing a Beyblade battle as he's falling to his death. This man hates for the love of the game. And as the pair fight, something is happening. Someone is awakening. With every attack, every clash of metal on metal, he grows stronger and stronger until... I could genuinely cry right now because my goat is finally here. This is why I kept calling Gingka a fraud. Best blader in the world, my ass. This is the greatest blader of all time, Ryuga. I'm gonna be completely real with you. This guy is single-handedly responsible for like 70% of the show's success. Like, he alone would have driven millions in sales just on aura. You had kids walking around without putting their arms in their sleeves trying to be as cool as him. And I'm gonna be real with you guys, I personally wouldn't mess with someone if I saw they had a literal aura surrounding, oh, never mind, he's got an aura too. And it just so happens that there's a stadium under the ocean. for some reason. Now this battle is unlike any other we've seen so far because we get to learn about the Forbidden Bay, Lightning Eldrago. And if you ever had a Bay growing up, you either had a Pegasus or an Eldrago. And that shit came with its own special launcher. And if you had both, you definitely try to recreate the battle we're about to see. And as the battle starts, Ryuga is packing up Jinga's shit, cutting him off at every chance with the most powerful attacks we've ever seen. And that's really saying something because this kid effortlessly beat 100 Bladers and has gotten a lot stronger since then, but he's still no match for Ryuga's Forbidden Bay. But Maka, why is Eldrago called the Forbidden Bay? Well, for starters, it's the only bay in the world, kind of, that rotates to the left. And this means that while normal bay battles look something like this, a battle with Eldrago looks like this, with it repeatedly cutting Pegasus off and delivering devastating attacks. And you know what's so crazy about this? Ginga makes it a point to say that he needs to defeat Ryuga as quickly as possible because he's currently at his weakest. Do you know how insane that is? This kid just woke up after a year and is casually packing in the supposed best blader in the country, and he's doing it both physically and mentally.
Go and get a better bay from your daddy, why don't you? Huh? I always knew that your old man and his bay were second rate, you know.
You know, one of the most iconic scenes in anime is when Frieza kills Krillin, causing Goku to go Super Saiyan for the first time. Yeah, this isn't that.
I'll say it 1,000 times. Your father couldn't cut it, so grovel at my feet just like your father did.
And then he continues to whoop Jinga's ass until he's literally begging for it to be over. And then we get to see something we haven't ever seen in the show. You know those cute little special moves? Those are for pussies. I mentioned how badass it was as kids for the characters in the show we watched to have iconic special moves. But Ryuga really made that shit his own because my goat has his own dark move.
Dragon Emperor soaring by strike!
And this leaves Ginga utterly broken and devastated, unable to keep the promise he had made to his father as Ryuga's laughter disappears into the darkness. But even after Ryuga's victory, there's one more reason as to why shows like Beyblade feel so different to shows from today, and that's actually a truly harrowing story. And what makes it even more impressive is how it stands out among the sea of anime flashbacks that already exist, from the brilliance of that completely wordless scene in Dandadan to Kiritsugu's breakdown in Fate, to even how Attack on Titan dedicated an entire episode to show us Grisha's past. There are some anime that just do flashbacks right, and 100 others that do them wrong, but Beyblade is not one of them, because Ginga and Ryuga's backstory is fire as hell and really puts into perspective the way that both characters develop by the end of the 3rd season. But to understand that, we need to go back a year where we meet Jinga's dad and the original owner of Pegasus, Ryo Hagane, who's also the chief of the village that guards Eldrago. Something a lot of us probably don't remember, or in fairness didn't really care about, is that Beyblade actually had some really great animation. And while we definitely get to see that in a lot of fights, one of the most beautiful scenes occurs during the village festival where Ryo uses his Pegasus to light the braziers in this absolutely stunning scene. But it turns out to be a moment that doesn't last because a certain group is trying to steal Eldrago. And after Ryuga obtains Eldrago, Ryo actually does a great job of fighting back. But Ryuga and Eldrago are just too powerful. And what I like the most about this battle is that there's no foul play or cheating involved. Ginga claims that Ryo is the best blader in the world, but Ryuga beats him fair and square. He might be evil, but he deadass is the best blader in the world. And that's a fact that doesn't change across all 3 seasons of this show. And before you say it, Rago was not better than Ryuga. And after Ryuga defeats Ryo, Bro uses his bandana to wipe the dirt off Eldrago. Like, I get why Ginga hates him, but I just can't not love him. But with the cave crumbling around them and the Dark Nebula having escaped with the Forbidden Bay, all Ryo can do is look to his son as he entrusts him with stopping Eldrago. And that's what started Jinga's journey. That's what started it all. And everything in this video really only is the start of this wonderful series. A series that truly defined our childhoods.
I'm Kenta, by the way. Thanks for helping me.
Who are you, anyway?
Madoka Amano. Fighting spirit! Fighting spirit! Fighting spirit!
Julia? Let's go.
The name's you.
My name is Masamune Kadoya. Wanna battle?
Huh? Beyblade is something that widens my circle of friends. A special tie that connects my heart with my friends, who are now far away.
I still remember begging my parents to give me money to buy my first Beyblade, and playing against my friends at school was genuinely some of the best memories I had as a kid. And it's kind of crazy to think about how a stupid little cartoon can connect the entire world. And it's not the only show to have done that. Shows like Avatar, Dragon Ball, Bakugan, Yu-Gi-Oh!, iCarly, Wizards of Waverly Place, Phineas and Ferb, Good Luck Charlie, Ben 10, Sweet Life on Deck, Kids Next Door, and so many more prove that the point of fiction isn't to escape, but to return. To return to a time where the only thing that mattered was having fun.
No matter what time it is or where we are, whether we're eating or sleeping, can you actually force me to take you seriously?
Ryuga, you just watch. The first time I met Gingka, having all sorts of battles with all sorts of friends, made more memories than I can count in this world, and I don't want it to end.
That one time, it was only for a brief shining moment, I became serious. I promised. Take it!
We won, Ryuga! You were watching, weren't you?
When I was a little kid, all I ever wanted to do was grow up. And now that I'm older, the only thing I want is to go back. Back to a time where I didn't need to worry about studying, work, buying a car, or renting a home. A time where my friends and I would gather around the lunch tables at school and do that stupid little countdown before launching our base. But the thing is, that doesn't have to stop now that we're older. There's no age limit on having fun. And rewatching this show reminded me that life doesn't need to be boring. It shouldn't be boring. It should be whatever we make of it. And another show that taught me a similar lesson is actually Dandadan of all things. So if you enjoyed this video, click the video on the left. I'm sure you'll love it. Thanks for watching.